Welcome to the latest episode of the Ladcast. This week's guest is a larger-than-life character who you undoubtedly all will know. He's one of the most recognisable and well-known strongmen in the world, competing at the World Championships on 5 separate occasions in the late 90s and early 2000s. Winner of Britain's Strongest Man and UK Strongest Man 10 times, European Strongest Man in 2004, competed at the Arnold Classic in 2005 where he came third. He's broken numerous world records along the way. He is the daddy. He is Glenn Ross.
How you doing?
How you doing, Glenn? Thank you so much for joining me today.
That's some intro.
Yeah, I'm so excited about speaking to you today. So thank you very much for giving me your time and coming in.
I appreciate that. No, I'm looking forward to this. I don't normally do podcasts, so this is going to be good.
Yeah, hopefully we'll touch on your story here, and how you became the strongest man in the world. So Glenn, maybe go back to the start about growing up, and were you the strongest guy in school, or were you just always a strong man, or how did you get involved? I know you did a bit of bodybuilding too, so talk us through how that journey sort of started for you.
Well, listen, we all love wrestling. We all love Jan Haystack's Big Daddy. We're always glued to our TV sets on a Saturday to that, and always remember watching World's Strongest Man back in the day with Jeff Capes, Kazmar, and obviously Jamie Rees would have been coming into my sort of early teen era. And he won it as well, and I remember Gary Taylor winning it, another Brit, and he actually, at that point, I was training for a couple of years in the gym and really got hooked on it then. So, needless to say, I've always been a fan of strength and being strong, and certainly at school, you're always fighting and wrestling in school, and I probably would have been a wee bit like that. In primary school, they're known as the cock of the school, the best fighter or whatever, but it's nothing to really boast about these days. But
it was important back then.
But back then it was very important, because, nobody bullied you, and that was the main thing, wasn't it, really, not to be bullied, Because, staying focused, being strong has definitely always been a dream and a factor of my life,
Must be such a big advantage in life in general. Just being really, really, really strong.
Yeah. I mean, it has its advantages. You can move the old settee or three, I do enjoy, the fact that, I have done the sport. I enjoy the fact that where I am now with the sport in terms of promotion and delivering back what they give to me. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that this interview will sort of give us that opportunity to explore school, right the way from school to where you are now, and sort of fill all the details in between. So you left school then. Was the plan straight to become a strongman, or where did you go after school?
No. At 16, it was always a dream of mine as well I love cooking.
Yeah.
So from about 11 or 12, I was in kitchens peeling potatoes in hotels and stuff like that and things like that. So I was a big fan of being a cook, and at 16, I was wondering how I was going to end up, being trained into it, and I'd been doing the Army Cadets then as well, and somebody said, well, why don't you become a boy soldier, and they'll train you how to be a chef. So I thought, that's a good idea. Yeah. So I ended up joining the boy service, boy soldier at 16, and then I went on to band service in the Army Catering Corps, and I served as a man for 3 years. And that's when the real bug started, because once I was a boy soldier, I was met him with a really good friend of mine, Paul, and me and him got addicted to the gym, got introduced to it, and Rocky Balboa and Top Gun was played every session, and at the end of the 2 albums, the session was over.
Brilliant. That's some soundtrack then.
Yeah, but they really, it was like every night, you just addicted to it, If you weren't running and training and doing assault courses, we were in the gym, we just got obsessed with it. And, it was just it was a great introduction to what then become me really lifting big weights, And I left at 21. I wanted to be... to go more in advance in the sport of lifting. Done a couple of bodybuilding shows as well.
Yeah.
Become Mr. Ireland, done a bit of powerlifting. It was a big bench at the time. I was benching 95 kilos. Did a great powerlifting total. I've done a 410 deadlift raw. I've done 415 kilo squat raw. No belts or suits, and I was the first guy in the UK to do 1,000 raw total in a powerlifting comp, and it was a title held for 17 years. It was only beaten by Graham Hicks recently. So yeah, I mean, I don't say I was ahead of my time in some things, but you know, I was all right.
Yeah,
I was all right.
Well,
I could lift.
Let's go back a bit to that, Mr. You sort of went over there, Mr. Ireland, and you know the bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah,
like it was just part and parcel of the way. But
yeah, but
that's a big dedication.
That was a journey getting strong. You know, I mean, obviously bodybuilding. Once I won that, I didn't really want to do that diet thing. Yeah. My passion was getting big, strong, and just lifting big weights, and that was where my passion was. And obviously watching World's Strongest Man at that point, Gary Taylor, then become World's Strongest Man, and that really highlighted me. I says, how do I get involved in this?
He was a Welsh fellow, wasn't he?
Yeah. How am I going to get involved in this? And the great thing, Gary, he come from got Commonwealth Games silver medal in weightlifting, and he was also a bodybuilder. So he had that little bit of thing. I thought, whoa, you maybe can transition to being a strong man. So I managed to get a hold of him through his agent and stuff, and asked him how to pull a truck for charity. So that was the introduction, and he invited me to Peterhead. I met a whole team, met some of the Mega Man and Magnus Ver and all the guys, and that weekend I got to compete on a couple of events with them and stuff, and it was just amazing. And from there I got introduced to the British scene by the organisers, and the late Douglas Edmonds then, and got to meet my hero Jamie Reeves at that show as well. It was just like everybody, you were just in awe, were there that weekend. And it really got me the bug. I said, I've got to do this. And I went back and, you know, had a couple of great sponsors, you know, Dominic Quinn, Brian Scullion of the Doors, work I'd done and stuff. And they went on, Alec Morton as well. I mean, without these three particular sponsors, I wouldn't have had the career start I had to do what I do. Yeah. Because you do need backing, you know, every young sportsman, from your golfers to your snooker players, you know, to be the best at the start, it costs you money, doesn't it? You don't earn any money, you know, and they pay for my trips and stuff, and I got to learn my art, and very fortunately, less than 2 years later, won the UK Championships. So
that seems really quickly.
Well, I suppose it was, but it wasn't as I wasn't training for a long time. I'd already done my apprenticeship, training from 16. So at that point then, I was about 24 years of age, 25, when I won my first title. So, you know, I'd done a good 8 years of not rushing, you know what I mean, getting myself on good foundations of strength and training and supplementation and eating and everything to do what needs to do to get you where you need to be.
And you see that the diet, I'm guessing the diet when you're bodybuilding is just ridiculous. You're weighing every grain of rice.
Yeah, and it was really, really difficult. I mean, when I won Mr. Ireland, I used to have a couple of bars of chocolate sitting on top of the fridge, and when I was getting it tough, I always remember this saying, a good friend of mine, Vin Gormley, I hope he's listening. Stevie Miller, we used to train with these guys all the time, but Vin told me, Glenn, when it gets really, really tough and you think you're skinny and flat and you don't feel as full with all this diet and weight, you see every time you walk past one of them mirrors or walk past a window and you see your reflection, just remember you're lean and mean. And that for me was such an inspiration to push on. Yeah. So, you know, into the diet, I got tunnel vision. Then at that point, it wasn't even a grain going over into that bowl that shouldn't have been in there. Yeah. And I tortured myself. I used to have these blocks of chocolates. Yeah. Used to sniff them. And I said, and I used to have a countdown, you're getting it when this starts over, and they used to put it back on the fridge, and it's probably, it made you even more determined,
That's well part of that.
to deliver it, and make it hard,
Yeah.
And I kept saying, lean on me. I couldn't get out of my head. And I never forget the morning of the show. I did that much. I never missed 1 second on the bicycle either, every day. And I remember Vinny coming to the front door, and he says, "You ready to pick me up to bring to the show, And there was a striation in my cheekbone, there was striations in my backside. And I said, "Vinny, you want to see these legs?" And I remember in the front door in the middle of the street, all the neighbours must have thought, "Who is this boy?" I pulled the trousers down, and you could see the tears in my legs and stuff. And Vinny went, "Right, let's rock, we're going to win this." And off it went, and we did, It was just unbelievable. They actually gave us a trophy of the best legs in Ireland and all of that. But my legs were just phenomenal that day. They were just striations upon striations. I had a feather right at the top as well. It just, the depletion was on the money, really. It was really to the point. But very, very dangerous game, though, when you deplete and lose the fluid and stuff and carb up. There has been deaths in the past with it, if you don't do it right. But when it's done right and you get a good professional body doing it, and listen, and hand out to these professional bodybuilders, they've got the body, and this is what I'm telling you, you don't go into these things quickly. You take it step by step, learn, listen, be amongst some of these athletes, and they'll teach you the right way to get it on the money, but it's very, very difficult. Getting the fluid back in at the end was difficult. I'll never forget my mate Conor Mulholland at the show. He says, "I don't know what you need." I said, "I'm struggling to drink this water, Conor." He says, "I know what you need." And he went over the bar and he got me a pint of Guinness. And I nicked the Guinness. I said, "Conor, I drunk that easy." He said, "Go and get another one there." So I threw it over the bar again. I said, "Give me a pint of Guinness." And I looked down and remember there was a £20 note to this day, And that's what I paid the drink with. But bodybuilding was definitely a great sport, but powerlifting and lifting heavy in the gym when I was being a bully is where my heart was, and I knew that there was the direction I needed to go.
That's a passion then? That
was a passion, because I was lifting more than anybody in the gym at the time, and to the point where I actually got chucked out of one of the gyms because he says, "You're not meant to lift them sort of weights."
What's that mean?
Exactly, and I'll not mention the person, but I think everybody who listens to this podcast was there that time and who I'm talking about. But yeah, we moved on, and there was a lot of other gyms out there that wanted me and stuff, and it was good, But it was a good time in my life, being a sportsman and competing in these different competitions. And one thing I will say out to everybody, do as many as you can.
Yeah.
Do as many as you can, because you don't know when that injury's going to come.
And is it injury that stopped you competing on, do you think?
Yeah. Eventually, I got to the point where I couldn't do another one of these, because it takes you out of the game for quite a long time. Sometimes, I've snapped my patella, I've had a prolapse disc, and you got to say to yourself, well, the prolapse disc was the one that signed it off for me, because the pain was just. I had nearly 12 months of it. It was just 3 months in particular before I got a cortisone. Was just a nightmare. I never want to go through that again. I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
What year was that then?
My 40th birthday.
40, okay.
Around then, yeah. So at that point, I'd competed for 16, 17 years in strongman. I'd competed in general for over 20 odd years. So I'd done my time, done my bit.
I was going to ask, what's the general competing lifespan of a strongman? Would that be quite long, or is that?
Well, a lot of them are in and out 5 years, 6 years, and that's it. The body's that beat, But again, if you plan your journey, you can do 10, 15 years, maybe slightly longer, like myself and Sadruna Savickas, who's just recently sort of hung up his boots a little bit. He's not doing as many shows now, but he went on 20 years. But some people can do that because he went the right way. He built himself up right, eating right, trained right, rested right. and didn't try to get to the top too quick. I remember competing with Big Z back in 2001, and he was a phenomenal athlete then, but he was learning his game.
Yeah.
And then about 5 years later, nobody could touch him because he wanted to learn his game first, rather than trying to rush into it and like a lot of the boys do and think they're superstars straight away. It doesn't work that way because you come in fast, you go out fast.
That's it. And tell us, see about in terms of like the technique. How important is the technique when you're lifting something compared to the strength?
Everybody has different ways of lifting, different positions in the logs. There's certain ways. I mean, obviously, I've coached a lot of people through the years, coming through and helped them within the sport, as I was helped. But not all ways of lifting suit different people. There's probably every lift you'll do. There's probably 2 or 3 variations to do it. So it's just finding what your mojo is, what works for you.
Yeah.
And practice.
Yeah.
Practice, back when I started, nobody had any equipment. And then I decided to get myself a couple of bits. And I remember Stephen Gracie, I like to name all these people because I never forget them. Give me a set of farmers.
Yeah.
So I got a mate to make them for me. So they'll do you, Glenn. And I remember a good mate of mine, geezer, Phil Wright from England, gave me a big stone and a log. And I took it home with me on a trailer. And that was from London. Yeah. Great friend to this day. And I remember putting the stone on the bin. And that's how I trained. And I won my first Britain's Strongest Man, putting a 120 kilo stone on the bin.
Like the Atlas stones, is that?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing as that.
Big ball, he got me made 120 kilos. It was about 21 inches wide, so it was wide enough.
Yeah.
And I used to do reps, put it on the bin, pull it down, and smash the slabs of the pavings in the backyard. And the wife wasn't too happy, but that's again learning the art,
Yeah. That's learning it.
And that was giving me the edge. Getting a couple of bits of kit.
Yeah.
And then I got a tire. I was given by a quarry. Started flipping it. Probably the best cardio ever. And it's funny how the transition of tire flip now is in every sport.
Yeah, it's got all the UFC guys, all the...
Yeah,
seems to be...
It's a great thing. It's a great cardio, great explosive power. You turn people over in rugby, you turn them over in UFC, as you say. And it should be used, really, that explosiveness coming out is even used in boxing, isn't it? Getting underneath and coming up. It's indirect, impact on your muscles, so you will get that explosive power from it.
I think the general transition in the fitness industry seems to be a focus away from cardio and more on the weights these days, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I think you've got to be, strong first,
Yeah. So you were really ahead of your time back then.
Yeah. It's health, strength, performance,
Yeah.
So you get your health right, then you get strong, and then you work on your performance.
Yeah.
In terms of being fast.
And have you noticed a big change in the way you would have trained 20 years ago, the way the guys train now? Is it a massive difference?
I think I just learned off the old dogs.
Yeah. So they've learned off you.
Not off people like me, yeah.
Yeah. But it's...
People like Zadrunas, people like that. They've watched what we've done in the past,
Yeah.
One of the big talks of the guys now is a guy called Pavlo, just become Europe's strongest man. It was all over the forums last week. That he was doing the daddy clean in the axle and hadn't been seen for a couple of years. But obviously he struggled.
Yeah.
So he took my format of doing the thing and it's been working for him.
There you go.
So like I say, there's different variations of putting axles up.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do any of them. So I formed my own.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Well, that's exactly what works for you then. What works for you.
So he's been doing that of late. So yeah. Big shout out to Pavlo and I appreciate him coming to the UK Strongest Man. He tried a world record Husafeld and it was just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah.
He was just shy of it, but it was just breathtaking to see this guy carry 187 kilos up and down, 186, sorry, up and down. It was just insane. Insane.
I think when I was talking to you before, I was saying the only thing that I can really relate to strongman lifting is bench pressing because it's the only thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine trying to lift an Atlas stone or any of those other events, but obviously everyone can bench press in the gym but their own weights, and I could have done maybe about 90 kilos probably is the best, And you were bench pressing like 295.
295.
Like,
I benched a mahogany pool table. It took me 3 weeks because of the coin box, you
Yeah.
know. And I had to mark it underneath because a couple of attempts in it, your punch had lifted something of that scale. Could have been guts of a quarter of a ton. Big mahogany pool table was late and all. But
I'm guessing if you're bench pressing that, you're not just moving it into the corner.
no, I benched after 3 weeks of trying in the coach. I remember all the boys watching me every week. I used to get under and try to bench it. And eventually I did get it up.
Quarter of a ton, like, it's not even, I can't even quantify that. Like, I don't know.
No, it was good, yeah.
So then you move with the bodybuilding. Then you've got the dad was obviously crazy. Then you went into the strongman. You pulled the truck with Gary Taylor. Gary Taylor got you.
Well, Gary Taylor showed me told me how to do that, and then I trained, and then he invited me to Scotland, and I met all the people that were involved in getting us into the sport, basically.
And obviously, then, so that was maybe your first chance to compete with these guys. You realised that you're on the same level as these, or that's something you could be.
Yeah, I'd say something I could be. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
And then that was that. That was you signed up
to
be.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And then is that when your goal changed then, or did?
Yeah. I said I could mix it with these guys. You know, I just needed to practice. So I went away and I practiced.
Yeah.
And then I competed in a couple of shows and I practiced some more. Learned off a few of them. And then when I won my first British title, I thought, how am I going to win worlds? The only way I'm going to win worlds is being amongst these guys. So I befriended a few of them. Heinz Oles, Big Torvey.
Yeah.
I went out to Heinz's house, out to Hugo Girard's house in Canada, and out to Heinz's in Germany. Spent a few days with them and stuff, and maybe a week, eating them out of their fridge. And they showed me the art of how to be a world beater.
I've got actually a wee list of them. We'll come on to it in a wee minute. And I used to watch World's Strongest Man with my dad. It was always on between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah.
It was on like BBC every night. There was like a heat it would culminate maybe New Year's Day in the final.
Yeah.
And I used to enjoy watching it when I was younger, and then right whenever you were competing and all the rest. So a list of a few names that I remember from back then.
Yeah.
So we'll go through in a wee minute. Like, but your first World's Strongest Man then was 1998.
That's right.
And where was that? Was that Morocco, was it? Or?
The first World's Strongest Man, I thought I was going to go to in 97 to Las Vegas.
Oh, Las Vegas.
And I didn't get the place. So, at that point, I was just totally focused on now I've tasted a couple of the British element and beating them guys. I thought, I've got to see what these world boys are doing. So I said to Paul, obviously the guy, and we were still good friends. We both had left or serviced on that, and 10 years we're still talking.
Yeah.
And he's still one of my best. I've got about 5 people on my phone that are under bro, and he's one of them.
He's one.
Yeah, and die for wee Paul, good lad. I said, Paul, come on, we're going to go see World Star. He said, where is it? Las Vegas. I went, what? I said, right, get your money together. We're all going. So I said, you got about 2 months to get some money saved. He said, I'll be good. We'll go. Next thing, I'm in Heathrow and we're flying to Las Vegas. Hardly a pot to piss in. We're going over there winging it, if you know what I mean. And we managed to get in with the boys, and they fed us a wee bit. A few quid went on the ranges and different things. It was a great trip. And I got to see them all, meet everybody, and met Fleming and everybody else, and talk to them and listen to them. And there's only a way you can learn. And it was great watching Worlds, and that was the year Yoga Holo come in as reserve, won the title.
Yeah.
The youngest and lightest guy to ever win the title. And then the following year he come back, we were all invited to Morocco, and I got my place in Morocco. So Morocco was an unusual place. Everybody got food poisoning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was only about 6 lads left in the final event. Yeah. Discipline on the final day. They were competing at that point. Everybody, Big Fleming nearly died. He had salmonella and everything. Jeez. It was a horrible venue. Food was terrible. Chicken was green and everything. It was horrendous for a venue. But yeah, it was my first Worlds, and I'll never forget it. I got warned that the place would be quite dirty and the food wasn't great. So the daddy being the daddy, I turned up with a big green suitcase. And in that suitcase was about 30 tins of rice pudding and about 20 bags of packets of fig rolls. So I turned up and I opened the suitcase, and a couple of lads I said, what are you doing all that for? I says, you'll see. About 24 hours later, they were queuing outside. Can you give us a tip? They all thought it was nuts. I wasn't that nuts at the end of it, you know. But no, Morocco was a great thing. That was my baptism of competing at world level. And then in '99, Britain's Strongest Man came about on TV for BBC, a big show. And I got my place to it. I wasn't favourite. You had Lee Bowers and big Steve Brooks and big Graham Mullins, a few other boys, and Rob Dixon, a few other seasoned UK guys, Bill Piddock, just to name a few of them, would have been the sort of favourites, you know, Brian Bell of Scotland, but it wasn't no fat Irishman, you know, and but I went over and 2 weeks prior to that, I went and done a show, the Docklands, and like, I'll say this again, and the athletes now and strongmen that are competing today, they all want about 4 months to hear what events they're doing.
Oh, really?
All this nonsense and, you know, all advanced stages, and they'll do 1 or 2 shows a year. It's complete nonsense. Absolute nonsense. To learn your art, to be the best, you've got to be match fit. Do as many shows as you can. Yes, 2 or 3 weeks out from a big one, don't be doing any competitions. But certainly you need to be match fit and turn up on the day. A lot of these shows I turned up, I didn't know what the events were or anything. You just went out and done your best. There's 5 staple things in strongman. There's truck pull, there's tire flip, there's stones, and there's log press. And practice your deadlifts, and you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. Everything else will fall into place. And it just makes me laugh the way some of these, what I would call teacups of the world now, all want this advanced stuff, and they've all got these coaches, and they've all got these, what's the word I'm looking for? Sports psychiatrists, and the world goes on and on and on and on. Like, that might be all right if you want to, if you've tried everything else, and there's somebody maybe that's nipping in, you're either just coming short of winning those titles, that you want to try something else. But certainly in the interim, you know, you need to learn yourself. Be yourself.
Yeah.
Learn your art. Learn the training. Get training. Do your mistakes yourself, you know. It's the only way to learn, you know what I mean? Don't listen to some coach that, you know, unless he's been from the sport. Then there's a whole pile of them out there you could write on the back of a stamp. They went and done one other show and then they become a coach. And, you know, if anything, it just ridicules you as a person. You know, you're taking advice of somebody who hasn't been there.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get a coach and feel you need a coach, pick somebody who's been in the sport and has some credibility in the sport. Yeah. And there's some good coaches out there that deserve that. And but people always go for the sillier option.
Yeah, probably the more expensive option too, because it seems...
well, you get what you pay for, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. How many times a year would you have been competing back then?
Every 2 weeks,
maybe
every 3 weeks. Yeah.
And as long as you're staying fit, and then coming up to the Worlds, then you maybe give yourself a bit of a break.
I had 2 great friends that competed on the circuit with me.
Yeah.
Mark Lawson and Billy Little, and they used to compete every week. Mm-hmm. And one did a show on Saturday, one did a show on Sunday. I'll win this one, you win that one to get the prize money. And they used to go around all the wee fetes and do the wee strongman shows and lift money. And that's how they got a few quid for it, you know what I mean? And that's how they funded their sport, you know? But, yeah, and they were match fit and they were great competitors. Strong men.
Yeah.
You know, hardy men.
Yeah.
Something you don't see as much now, you know, they break a nail and they got to take 3 weeks off.
Yeah, I think that is a lot of sports are like that now, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of sports are totally different like that.
Yeah, they're not competing for what it's about. Not competing for the sport. It's all about money, cash and everything else. And I think when you lose the ethos of why you're in the game, you shouldn't be in the game, in my opinion.
Without going into sort of details about this, but was it lucrative to be a strongman?
No.
Not at all. Is it a lot more lucrative now?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
Is it very lucrative now, or is it still...
Well, some people can make a decent living.
Yeah.
Not a footballer living.
No.
Certainly not a top rugby player living, but you can certainly compete for free.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to say I got to the point where I got a career where I competed for free. Did I make any money? No, I didn't. But it didn't cost me anything. Certainly for about a decade.
Yeah. Would like to be competing these days?
No.
No. Different.
I've done it.
Yeah. But I mean, if you could go back and, is
No,
it
I think the
events?
characters have changed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
People say about that as well. I mean, even in football and rugby, I was part of a generation, and I'm glad to say that my strongman brothers of that generation, I wouldn't want to change a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was part of that. I was glad I was part of the ethos of competing for the sport. It wasn't about money. Getting a few quid was great, but yeah, it wasn't about the money.
About a list of some of the strongmen I remember when I was younger.
Yeah.
That you maybe competed with, and really of what they were like, or if you've had this one
Yeah.
with them. So the few of the names that I could remember was Magnus Samuelsson.
Yeah.
What was he like?
Gentleman.
Absolute. He was a big Swedish guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolute gentleman.
Yeah. Jan Vertanen, is that how you pronounce it?
Yanni Verton.
Vertanen, sorry. What was he like?
Yeah, another gent. Yeah. English not as good, but he was certainly could communicate with him as a good guy.
I think you maybe mentioned him before. Sven Karlsson.
Sven, a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Obviously he's quite ill now, but yeah, good guy.
Oh dear, sorry to hear that. One name that I always remember, I think he won it a couple of times back then. Was it Magnus from Magnus's?
Yeah, Magnus from Magnus. Obviously, I only met him at the start.
Yeah.
At Peterhead, and then after that he retired from the sport. He's become the official referee now, at World's Strongest Man.
Yeah. Hugo Girard.
Yeah, one of my best mates.
Yeah. And you competed against all these guys?
Yeah, yeah.
One guy, just the last name I had, because I know he's going
Pudge.
into MMA now. Is this
Yeah,
Brian
Marius,
Pudge
yeah, a gentleman. Yeah,
Yeah.
me and him would text each other and stuff. Yeah, he's a good guy.
And he had a fighting background beforehand, he went into?
Yeah, he was kickboxing background, and
Yeah.
then he went to strongman, and he went back to his love.
Yeah.
But obviously UFC after he finished the kickboxing and done the strongman, UFC had really exploded then. So he decided to do cage fighting instead of kickboxing.
Yeah.
Oh, he did quite well in that as well. So
Is he still fighting, is he?
still
fighting?
does the odd fight. Recently just lost one. He doesn't lose them all,
I was going to say.
It's one of them sports, isn't it? You're sort of respected if you've got 4 or 5 losses in UFC.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know
Aren't
what
you?
mean. Yeah. There's a
I mean,
bit
look at one of the greatest fighters I ever watched is Naz.
Yeah.
He's loads of losses,
Yeah. Yeah.
But he has his heart in his sleeve in the ring, doesn't he? I mean, his face is lying open,
I wonder what it's like, though, facing the world's strongest man in a cage fight. Just then,
Yeah.
just thinking about it,
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
It would be absolutely. And so those guys, I mean, they're obviously, there's just some of the names I remember growing up when I was
Yeah.
watching it, along
Yeah.
with yourself. Like, I remember watching you down in, I think it was Custom Square House.
Yeah.
You were lifting, I can't remember what it was called now. But your nose just burst.
Oh, right, okay.
Remember that?
Yeah,
It was like it looked really, really awful. I remember thinking, Jesus.
No.
But is that just a
The odd
blood vessel
nosebleed
going?
would happen. It's just a pressure point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a pressure
And
point.
was it good competing back here?
Yeah, it was great competing at home, when you did have the opportunity to do it. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Will the strongman's be coming back to Belfast at some point?
Possibly. I'm thinking about one event maybe next year. I think Belfast needs it.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything since the pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we need to bring something back.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to get the crowd back out again. So touching on then, you competed at the Worlds 98, 99, 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
Were you still learning back then, do you think? Or were you competing at your peak then?
At the Worlds.
Yeah.
I think every year, every day's a learning day, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, you keep learning different things. And the great thing at that point, Jamie Reeves was running the show. He kept bringing out new disciplines. So there was new concepts you had to learn and I don't say twist the worlds, but learn how to get around them in some ways that you were delivering that extra rep or whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
I want to sort of touch then on the Arnold Classic. So in 2004, you were European Strongest Man. And do you think that got you an invite? The Arnold's was that like a private competition? 2004
I was competing with the World Strongman Cup, so prior to that, I was in Zambia at my last Worlds. So I just didn't feel, I'm not saying get your best draw, but I just felt that World's Strongest Man at that point for me had lost its ethos a little bit. It started becoming, I would call, a Jane Fonda competition of that era. For 3 or 4 years, it was all about strength athletics. To what you see now as a form of CrossFit, if you like, to a point, where maximalists sort of not been happening anymore and stuff like that. Back in the era of Braden Hurst and people, great lifters of Magnus Ver, you know, even Gary Taylor's and even Jamie Reed's, like, they're really, really super strong men. And all that stopped. They started doing strength athletics for the Finns and all the Scandinavians who loved to move. They loved to move. And so they picked up a lot of Husafel Stones running and explosive series of different weights and stuff. And I find it, being a 400-pound man in weight, you know, in the words of OD, you know, if it needs lifted, I'll lift it. If it needs pulled, I'll pull it, you know. Yeah. But if I need to jump over a bus, I can't do it. Yeah. And that's how I felt at that point. So the 5th year was my final year of Worlds, and there's a new crowd on the block called the World Strongman Cup had poached me. So I went and done their series for about 3 years, and had that ball, absolute ball. I got in with a load of other great strong men, and we travelled the world, and it was just, and it was a very lucrative series. It was on every channels around the planet, and I was winning the shows because it was very much strong. There was still strength athletic disciplines within it, which I didn't mind, as long as the mix was correct. Yeah, they didn't outbalance.
It's not just Jane Fonda.
Yeah. So I was winning a few and then doing well in the Jane Fonda events. Yeah. Enough to win the competition. So it was great. It was probably the first time in my life I had a few quid in the pocket. You know what I mean? I was winning a lot of shows as well as travelling. Got a bunch of guys, and I won the European meet. And the Arnolds invited me. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, this is a dream come true, you know.
Where was that held?
It was in Ohio. So I got advance notice as well, a bit like I've just eat my words now. We've got about 3 months, 4 months to prepare for it. Yeah. Got the list of events all sent to me. And this, for me, was my opportunity to show the world that I was the daddy. Yeah. Because they were all immense, static, monstrous events. And I went over believing I could win it. And that's how I learnt the daddy axle clean, because one of the events was axle press and I couldn't do it. And a big shout out to Brian Irwin. He trained with me throughout that entire period of that there. And I'm going to have another shout out. I'm just going to mention now Martin Campbell. I'll never forget him, because a couple of years, you know, I got cut short in Worlds with the Jane Fonda events that we go through. And Martin travelled all the way down from Bushmills right down to Bangor for weeks and train me up for South Africa. And, you know, these are friends I'll never forget. But Brian Irwin was there every week. We used to train together. Great guy, great strong man. And I said, Brian, I'm struggling with this axle principle. So we'll have to think of something else. So we were fiddling around. The next thing he says, try the hook technique, get it up. So it was a bowling match. Yeah. But then that hook technique became easier. Once you got the principle of it, and I managed to get 3 reps at the show, which was enough to have me in the big points. I won the deadlift, I won the dumbbell press, got world records in those. And bar this stupid medicine ball sack throw up to a height, again, you know, asked me to jump over a bus or something like that, explosively. It was more of a Highland Games type event. I'd have won the competition. I was like a point off second and about 3 points off Z, something like that, from winning the title. Yeah. You know, but it was an unbelievable feeling, you know. And I remember actually going up to the World's Strongest Man organizer, Rich, in the front audience, and I threw the belly up and I tapped him out. So not bad for a fat man. You know, it was just great. It was great. It was one of the best weekends of my life in terms of sport. To be amongst all the legends there. You seen Lou Ferrigno and Arnie coming up and shaking their hand, and it was just surreal.
Yeah.
And I got invited back. I snapped my patella, but they still invited me back the following year. I did go back the following year, even though it was off par.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to feel that experience again, being amongst almost a mecca of strength, which Ohio is now. Really,
Yeah.
it was great.
What was it like meeting Arnie? It was good.
A nice guy. You know, I mean, I'm certainly not into his politics, but you know, he has been an ambassador really for what is now, you know, bodybuilding, strongman, powerlifting, lifting in general.
Yeah.
Arnie really kicked it all off. I mean, we talk about our Reg Parks and stuff. Of course, back in the day, there was people training, but the main man would have been Arnold.
Yeah.
But you know, he is the Muhammad Ali of boxing. As much as there was great boxers before Ali, Ali will always be remembered as the greatest.
Yeah.
And Arnie will always be remembered as the greatest person to ever walk into a gym.
Yeah. There's a program on, or documentary on Netflix at the minute about him.
Yeah.
I haven't actually finished it. I've watched the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm getting into it. So tell us this. Go back to the Arnolds though. That 2005, finishing third. When it came to static lifting, you were the strongest man in the world, surely. Whenever the conversation people were having was...
Well,
yeah,
I come home.
you were there.
I come home that day, and like I had my peers, if you like, in the sport come up to me and shake my hand, and they all, I think they realised then at that point that, you know, that the world's strongest man I was in was, you know, I didn't get my time to shine, and all over the forums they said, well, Glenn won all the static events. He is clearly the strongest man statically on the planet. And at that point, even though I haven't lifted the crown of world's strongest man, I got my European title, I got all them British ones. At that point, I actually felt I'd achieved my goal.
Yeah.
You know, I felt I achieved my goal that weekend. Show the planet, show the world that the daddy was the man when it come to lifting.
And what's it like looking back, and even at the time, and then looking back on it now, being not the strongest man in the room or the strongest man in the gym, but the strongest man in the world? That must be some feeling. Must be invincible.
Yeah, blessing. I know, God-fearing man as I am, you know, it wouldn't be without big man upstairs, good family behind you.
Yeah.
It's another massive factor. Great friends, great strongmen have made me who I am.
Yeah.
And even enemies of the past have made me what I am, made me strong today. So, yeah, I'm at a time in my life now, I've got no enemies. I love everybody.
That's good.
You know?
Yeah.
No hate, just
It's
love.
a good, peaceful time, isn't it? Like?
Yeah, I think so. I think the older you get, there's no room for fighting. It doesn't get you anywhere.
No, you're
Just
right.
room for talking.
I think there's been enough fighting here over the years.
Yeah.
Hasn't there? Just touching on what you said about having a strong family behind you. Like, you have Yvonne and your two children behind you the whole time. It must be fantastic. They must be so proud of you as well. And they're a bit of a backbone for you, all your events.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. I couldn't have done out the missus.
Yeah.
She's been brilliant, you know. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And now that's a promotional work, you know. My kids are involved in everything, and now I've got a great family, you know.
Yeah.
Great family behind me.
That's great. Like. Sort of maybe just finishing up then, really. Sort of on a bit of a lighter note, if you like, sort of away from all your events and being the strong guy. What do you like to do to relax? Away from the sport, if you like.
It's very, very, very hard to get away from the sport because when you do want to relax, somebody's Facebooking you or somebody that wants to talk to you or you maybe when I do get a bit of downtime, I'm thinking about strongman disciplines, that new concepts and new ideas to make my shows better. So it's hard, but I do enjoy spending time as much as I can with the wife because I don't do enough of it. And certainly now, as the kids are older, we've been making efforts to go out and spend time. Even I love going to hotels.
Oh yeah.
I do like a nice hotel.
Treating yourself.
Treat myself in a nice hotel, and I like good food. I like trying all range of foods out. I do enjoy my food. I love all concepts of that. I love a good barbecue. I love being around friends, but I do like a lot of me time.
What's a barbecue at the Ross household like? I say
It is.
you know how to sort of stick
It's a mammoth task. Yeah, it's I do go to town. I go a bit OTT, as the wife says. I'll be at it all day preparing it. Even prepare the day before, marinade stuff.
Sounds
and that.
brilliant.
And I would do a couple of big stuff, briskets and things like that.
And what would you have a beer to wash it down with? What would your beer
Oh,
choice be?
I like a Guinness.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody likes a Guinness,
Yeah.
I like a good Irish coffee after dinner, like everybody. But I wouldn't be a massive drinker, but I like. Who doesn't like a Guinness?
What was the party? You see, whenever you're at World's Strongest Man, like the after event, was there big parties at those events afterwards?
Yeah, always. I mean, some of they always had an after party, which is something very similar. They always do barbecues because barbecue's easy. Lots of salads, a few potatoes and stuff, and lots of meat for the guys. It's just the sort of food they eat every day anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, what's that like though, with maybe 20 strong men all having a couple of beers and there's egos getting to everyone, or is it all
No,
crack,
that's just crack. I mean, that's one thing about our sport. There's not too many egos in it, I mean, everybody's, superb, and everybody, certainly when you got to Worlds, you're either a nationalist champion anyway and stuff like that, And you always got to toast the champion, and we were pleased for 99.9% of them. Of course you were. It was great. Great stuff,
You were saying that you think you must have had over a dozen world records.
Yeah, about 15 in total when I finished. So.
And how many? Some of them are still standing.
Yeah, a couple of them held, and I've enjoyed pressing, deadlifting, and squatting, those sort of static world records. They were the sort of things I did with different principal movements. But no, I enjoy breaking records was a big thing. You know.
And what's it like watching someone break it? Is it a bit of history gone or new history?
I was glad. I honestly was glad.
Yeah.
I mean, when Hicksy broke that raw record, I was so pleased for him.
Yeah.
Texted him and all, so I was so pleased.
That's great.
Because, you want your sport to keep going better,
Yeah.
And he's a superb strongman.
Well, I'm thinking there could be a wee sidetrack here for Daddy's Barbecues, Big Daddy's Barbecues. I think that'd be good. Can I ask you just a question? Sort of come up last year, I think, about two of the sort of maybe newer generation of strongmen getting into a bit of a boxing match.
Oh,
right, yes. Talk about here, Eddie Hall and Thor.
Yeah, Thor Bjornsson. Yes.
What do you think? What do you think about that? Was it a bit kitsch? Was it a bit?
Did
it do anything for the sport as much, or did it do anything for them?
Well, Eddie had retired from strongman at that point, so I think he was looking another opportunity. And I think there was a bit of controversy over World's Strongest Man result, and there was a bit of spat online between the two guys, and I think somebody had dreamt up let's do a boxing match with him, and the idea was put to them, and that's what happened. Was it good for the sport? I don't think it was bad for the sport. I think it was, you had two famous strongmen, two world's strongest men, if you like, fighting. So it highlighted the strongman community, highlighted the strongman world. Did it do anything for boxing? I don't think so. I mean, the guys who do boxing is a fine art. And they have from kids coming through, Yeah. So I'm sure a few of them had tongue-in-cheek with this. You get a lot of these celebrity boxing matches now.
That seems to be a big thing, doesn't it?
It seems to be a big thing. I don't know. I'm a purist myself. I think you're stepping on a sport that you just learn to make a few quid of. And I'm not saying belittle, but it doesn't add to the great boxers out there, does it? No. Watching their matches, but the kids seem to want to watch these online boxing matches by maybe YouTubers and stuff, and you think, I don't get it. I just don't get it. But it is what it is. And Eddie and Thor fight happened. It was an interesting fight. I watched it with everybody else on the planet.
Yeah, I think.
Of course I did.
You're going to tune into it, aren't you?
Of course you're going to tune in. It was two strong men.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it was two boxers, and I am a massive boxing fan. I love boxing. and we've had some of the best come out of Northern Ireland, and indeed Ireland, and it's been it was an interesting fight. I mean, both of them definitely hit each other hard.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when each of them did connect in the face, they both went down. So they both had a knockout dig, but you could tell that Thor had definitely done his homework in terms of the principles of boxing.
He seemed to slim right down for it, didn't he?
He
Lost
did,
a lot of weight for it.
and he did a lot of good training, and it was nearly 2 years because he got put back because of the pandemic and different things, didn't it? So he had a lot of training time, and he had good coaches behind him that showed him the art of boxing. And Eddie, I think, was just wanting to do a couple of big haymakers the first round and hopefully get him down the first round, you know.
Yeah.
But boxing doesn't work like that because you got gloves on.
Yeah.
You're not grabbing anybody. You know what I mean? It's just and I think the fitness won it in the end, and Thor was the fitter guy.
Yeah. I think overall, but hopefully they'll do it again. I know they talked about doing it again, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, is there an appetite for everybody to see it again? I don't know.
No, probably not. Like, but
I don't know. But I mean, a rematch. Well, I mean, to be fair to Eddie, he did knock Thor down. There could be another one that he could beat him on the next one.
That's the thing, though.
It's just a question. Yeah, like you say, of course, everybody would tune in. Yeah. I mean, Eddie was a great strongman. I'm not sure he was a great boxer, but it was an interesting fight, and it was an interesting watch. And I don't think it did any damage to strongman community. I think, if anything, it might have just highlighted strongman in general, because there was a few people talking about it that normally wouldn't even touch into strongman. So I thought it was good on that principle, but it definitely didn't do anything for boxing.
Would you have had a sporting hero when you grew up, and even now?
100%. Another one of my most favourite sports of all time is snooker.
Okay.
I absolutely love snooker. And my sporting hero of all time is the legendary whirlwind Jimmy White.
Oh, brilliant.
And I have been a fan of his for years. And the last year he got to the world final again and not win it. He did a 147 leading up to that, which had me weeping. And when he failed to do it again, it had me weeping. So he's been a massive, massive hero of mine. And I was very glad on my 40th birthday, he was doing one of them legend tours, and the wife says it's in Dundalk. So she'd organised that, and we went down to see him. And I had a couple of pints at the bar. I had Phil Wright with me. He says, come on up to the bar. And I said, no, Jimmy's playing. No, we'll down, we'll watch him now. The film will not be over yet. Did he do a 147 and nearly killed Phil? Oh. And because he's such a hero, I was absolutely, you could see he was that broken hearted. And he says, I'll sort this. So big man, he went down and he got the organisers and my big mate up there, Glenn Ross. Could he meet Jimmy, Yeah. So Jimmy actually come backstage and met me.
Brilliant.
Well, mate, I just, when you do meet, I just went into tears tripping me. Yeah. Couldn't help it. And he signed his chart 147, and I got to meet my sporting hero. And some people say don't meet your sporting heroes because you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't disappointing, Jimmy. Legend.
He was brilliant.
Legend.
That's brilliant. Like, he seems such a good character too.
Legend.
But, like yourself, a real character of the sport. Like
the best.
It transcends the sport. Like, everyone knows Jimmy White. Everyone knows Glenn Ross. Like, everyone knows these special people in their events. Like, in their sports. Finally, one question, Glenn. But perhaps you could ask this, because only you can ask it in your special way that you would do whenever you broke a world record. Could you give us your best "Who's the Daddy"?
Of course I could.
Thank you.
Of course I could. Listen, to all the fans that support me over the years, I want to thank everybody. And just remember, who's the daddy?
Yes. Thank you so much, Glenn. I really appreciate your giving me your time coming back and doing this. Hopefully, I really enjoyed it. Got a lot from it. Hope you did too. Is there anything you want to promote or any? I know you're doing a lot.
You
want
to? Yeah, definitely.
Give a shout out to?
I'm very much involved in a couple of things now. I mean, I don't know if it's any secret or not yet, but I promote all the Ultimate Strongman now. It's celebrated 20 years of the sport, and I have a great business partner, David McConaughey. So click on the ultimatestrongman.tv. Come and watch our events. We've just recently done one in Scotland, which was sold out. Just go on our social medias to see the feedback. You know, you'll love our events. Proper Strongman now has gone WWE. Lots of pyrotechnics, lots of fun, great intros, great costumes, and more importantly, great lifting. You know, you get to see some world records, some unbelievable feats of strength, and you get to see some great strongman characters, and some old ones as well, which we have very much involved in the sport, commentating, refereeing. And I want you to be part of Ultimate Strongman, indeed, strongman in general, because it's the greatest sport on the planet.
Glenn, on that note, thank you so much for coming in. All the best.